Hi, I'm Alex Kister. I'm the creator of the Mandela Catalogue as well as Mystifying Oracle and Festival. A little over a month ago, I did a post on my Patreon account requesting some questions for a Q&A video. So some of these will be about the series, some of them are about my creative process. So yeah, let's get right into it. And sorry, I was on a little tired at the beginning, but I promise my energy increases a little as the video goes on. First question comes from Thunderly007, who says, "You said in the past that the goal was to go up to Volume 6 and end it there, but now it seems like you're going to go beyond that. What made you change your mind, and how has this affected the way you want to tell the story of the Mandela Catalogue?" So if you're a longtime fan, you would know that around the time that I was teasing the Volume 4 thumbnail, I made a post on my socials kind of teasing it was like six boxes, like the first three on top were volumes 1 through 3, and then I did like a blurry Volume 4 thumbnail in the fourth one, kind of implying that there was going to be only two more after that. And at the time, that was the plan because I thought that this rest of the story was going to fit in those two, but the more that I'm working on it and the more that I'm kind of thinking of new ideas, the more I realize that there's just not enough room. I don't think I'll give an actual end date or end video right now. I think it'll just happen when it happens. I just have too much in mind to fit it into two more volumes. So you got a lot of Mandela Catalog coming yet. The next question comes from 065 Zororo Kugo, who asks, "Do you plan to develop your work in media other than video? For example, novelization, comic book, etc." And I actually have thought about this a little bit. I feel like once the series is done, uh, I would I would love to do some kind of comic book or graphic novel type thing. I feel like, particular not to rip off Junji Ito or anything, but I feel like that kind of style would actually fit really well for the series. An art style similar to that. I don't know. We'll see. They ask another question, which is, "Do you have any plans for a continuation of Mystifying Oracle or Festival?" So both of those right now, those series are kind of in a similar spot where I would consider Mystifying Oracle to be technically done. That was kind of my plans for it. I think that it be ending on a trilogy like that would be good. But who knows? I might think of something more to put. But for Festival, that it's an anthology series. It's just one of those things where I'm once I get an idea for something to put in that story, I'll do it. But that's not really my priority right now, as I'm working on uh, more important Mandela Catalog stuff. Next question comes from Ruru, who asks, "What inspired you to incorporate various art forms and animation into the Mandela Catalog? Was the process notably different or more challenging for Volume 5 compared to your initial expectations?" So for the first question, the thing that intrigued me so much about analog horror to begin with when I started out in 2021 was the whole like mixed media aspect of these other popular analog horror series, and it was so interesting to me the concept of telling a story. It's the same story but just told in way like so many different perspectives, and yet it all matches up. That has always, even like still, like I think you can kind of see that also in volume 5. Like I'm really into that concept of like seemingly like at first glance completely unrelated things kind of mashing together to make sense at the end of the day, where it's like you see this one thing and you see this completely different thing, and then you kind of put the pieces together in your head like, oh, these things actually match up. I think that's really fun. And for the second question, yes, the process for uh, developing Volume 5 and producing it was probably the hardest next to Volume 4. Just because, I really stepped up the live action stuff, spent a lot more money on equipment and filming locations and stuff like that. So that was really the only thing that was like noticeably difficult and more different than before. But other than that, I still really enjoyed the process and it was really fun. Killswitch asks, "Will you continue Scrimblow catalog?" And to that, I say maybe. Um, I've kind of been putting it off for 2 years now. It's weird to think that Scrimblow 2 was 2 years ago already, but I just don't really. Right now, I'd rather focus my efforts on to developing my my portfolio, I suppose. Um, as weird as that sounds, but I think someday it'll come along. I just don't. The first two Scrimblows were kind of a nod to my early mistakes and things that were kind of easy to make fun of back in the day when during the whole analog horror trope stuff. Um, I feel like I've kind of hit the nail on some of the big things. It's I'll have to think of more things about my series to make fun of. I think that I could do a whole bit about the the obvious green screen stuff though. I think that'll be kind of funny. Next question comes from Hoshi Kanzi. Hope I pronounced that right. Saying, how have you been? Also, quick question. How do you feel that you have a series now and it came out as good as you wanted? Do you feel happy about it? That it came out how you truly wanted, or were you not expecting it to come out this way? So there's this cycle that I go through whenever I make a volume, typically, where I mean, I do enjoy the product that I'm putting out. However, with time, and I'm maturing and growing more artistically, I kind of look back on the old stuff and think, I don't know. Like, I don't really look back on the original Volume 1 very well. I think that's really the one video where I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe the criticism got to me too. That might have played a part subconsciously, but other than that, I just don't think it's that stellar, and which is why that's kind of the one video that I decided to do a remake of. Um, but I am very happy with my recent stuff, and I don't really think like ever since Volume 3, I haven't really thought that way about anything else. I'm pretty happy with how things have been past that point. Carlos Angel asks a question in regards to the alternates that appears in the Ancient Booker's interpretation part in Volume 5, asking, how do you get the ideas for the alternate looks and how will they be reappearing in the future? So it's rare that I get an idea for how an alternate looks because I feel like I kind of used all of my like mental image ones already. So it kind of just comes accidentally because I do whenever I'm trying to get any new ideas, visual ideas for Mandela videos, I just do a lot of digging on like the internet and YouTube and like really low view, weird, creepy videos, and the ideas will kind of just come to me naturally. So that's kind of where I got those images from, and then I just used them as a source and then just built upon them in Photoshop, really edit them to make them look really weird and stuff. So that's kind of how that process usually goes. Brendan Varga says, you decided to do a remake of Volume 1 and you have improved it greatly. Thank you, by the way. I think there's a lot of people who would debate you on that. He says, do you plan to remake more of your older works, such as Volume 2 or Overthrown? I don't really plan on remaking any other old videos. Volume 1 was kind of the one that I really wanted to do a remake of because it's kind of like the Mandela Catalog video. I didn't want my channel to just be filled with, oh, remake of this and this and this and this, because then it gets really complicated in terms of the lore and stuff. Um, because Volume 1, the original and the remake both are canon in their own ways. So they're existing within each other. Um, However, I don't really think that I can't really do the same for Overthrown in Volume 2 because I feel like the Genesis Apocryphon channel kind of, in a way, is the Overthrown remake where I'm kind of using that space to upload what I would have considered the better version of the edited beginner's Bible cartoons. He also asks, what does live action achieve for your films in comparison to analog? So the whole, for me, the whole notion of the Mandela Catalog was, horror and mixed media, as mixed media as humanly possible. I think that, and I'm gonna be going deeper into that in the future too. But in terms of like visual stuff, um, I think that the live action stuff is kind of a fun way to implement the ideas that I have that I feel like just isn't appropriate for analog horror because it kind of gets to a point where you start to think while you're watching these videos like, okay, why is this person even recording this with a camcorder right now? It doesn't really make any sense. However, I didn't want to just do like literally just live action stuff as its own thing. I knew that I like that's kind of where the stylization came in to the whole picture, with the whole like surreal imagery and the black and white high contrast, low frame rate stuff. I knew that there needed to be something more to it to make it special so that it's not just live action in a way. And that way it also works with my budget very well to go with the weird superimposed background stuff. I think that that's really fun too, and I feel like it adds to the atmosphere a lot. And this leads into the next question very conveniently, being how did you conceive the surrealist, unnerving atmosphere of the Mandela Catalogue's live action sequences? So, the conception of the live action stuff came pretty early on, actually, in late 2021 before exhibition, and I'm not going to consider Volume 2 as being truly live action because it's still found footage, even though it is live action. But you know what I mean. But in terms of like it being truly live action, like this is not coming from a camera necessarily. I knew that the original idea for Volume 2 was going to actually be live action, but a more weirdcore, dreamcore, whatever inspired thing with a lot more color in it. Um, and I'll put an image on screen right now of a very early concept art that I made in my dorm room when I was in college for that very short amount of time. And from then, Volume 3 was coming along, and while it was primarily analog horror, I wanted those transitional um, bits of video to be live action. I wanted to start working on that really weird, like disconnected, like sky from ground and like all these weird Photoshop vibe stuff. I thought that was really fun, and I got a lot of inspiration from other series to do that. So it kind of evolved more into Volume 4, which I went all out on, and I think I went a little crazy on it, but I'm still actually pretty happy with how it turned out. It still ended up being exactly how I wanted it to be. However, I think that Volume 5 was a better evolution of it. I think that it was a lot more better implemented, especially with the horror stuff. Because Volume 4's live action bits didn't really have much horror. It was more of like a way for me to show more lore and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty happy with it. I think I'm going to be continuing to do that though. And then the last question from this person is in most of your scenes, including alternates, you have used a mixture of 3D animation and still images. In Volume 5, you have decided to use practical effects and costumes. What inspired you to achieve this? And this kind of all comes back to that same notion that the series was built upon, being the mixed media aspect. And not only is the video coming from a million different sources and imagery types, but I wanted the alternates to also kind of have an extreme variety where N is a lot more practical effects with hints of animation, and the intruder is primarily CGI. Um, Even the Volume 3 alternate is mostly CGI, but then Gabriel um, can be in like claymation. He can be in the Bible cartoons. He can be in like whatever. I think that that's really interesting and that's really fun. And I feel like it gives the alternates a lot more character because otherwise it would just kind of be like, oh, I don't really know who this new one is in a way. So yeah. Next question is from Elon, who says, I heard in an interview that Overthrown was partially inspired by a poem you wrote in high school. Are there elements of the Mandela Catalogue story that have been in your head for a long time, or did it only come together after you made Overthrown? So, yes, the whole premise of Overthrown was very loosely based on the vibes of this poem that I wrote in high school towards the end of my senior year as part of a big project. And I thought that that was fine on its own. However, I didn't really have anything in mind for what the rest of the series was going to be, because at the time, which in which the series was actually called the Time Shift Archives for like 2 weeks or so, the whole plan was to keep going with the theme of edited kids cartoons that were just going to be kind of like corrupted in some weird way. But I just didn't really feel like I had the time. Like I just didn't really have the passion to do that anymore. However, I did have the passion for the story that was being set up and overthrown, the whole concept of this religious figure overtaken by evil and stuff. And I kind of thought, you know what, like I could keep doing analog horror videos, but in a very different way, but it still kind of connects. And that's kind of where the videos leading up to Overthrown, sorry, Volume 1, came to be, which were later compiled into being the original Volume 1 as we know it now. Um, and it's just kind of a miracle that both of those sides of the series both happen to be extremely successful because Overthrown, I posted that on the Analog Horror subreddit way back in the day, and that got very good reception. And then I did the other ones, like the Volume 1 parts, and then those were received really well. So I somehow somehow pulled through with getting those to get positive reception. So I'm just very grateful about that. And then everything just kind of fit into place after that. Next question comes from Data Mosher, who asks, what tools did you use to help you get started with creating, editing, and filming? So when I was starting out, so this would be um, every Mandela video up to exhibition. I was using my phone to edit everything. So the tools I used were apps such as iMovie, Pixelmatic. I can't believe I'm saying this, but like the little drawing feature on Snapchat, I did actually use that for some things. I'm not saying what because it's really embarrassing. You have to find out on your own. Um, but it was really those three, and then and the Rare Vision VHS, I think, for the VHS effect. I would do everything in iMovie, compile everything, and then just transfer it over to the VHS video and then post it. Um, and that's really it. Like you can do so much with just a phone. It's actually unbelievable because I mean, the only reason why I transferred to PC for Volume 2 onwards was just because I was taking things up a notch and I just needed the extra power and storage and whatever. But yeah, don't underestimate your silly little iPhone. It can do a lot. So I think that that'll be the last of the questions that I do for this video. However, if you want to watch even more Q&A that I've done, there's actually two other ones on my second channel. Should be just titled Alex Sister Q&A numbers 1 and 2. So yeah, hope you enjoyed very much. I'll leave a link to my Patreon in the description if you're interested in participating in little things like this sometimes. So I'll sometimes post Mandela Catalog related behind the scenes and unused assets, stuff like that. Um, so yeah, and we're extremely close to 1 million subscribers, which is insanity. I can't believe that. So final stretch, see if we can do it. That would be kind of crazy. I'll do another video when that comes around, probably doing a silly little activity. I don't know. We'll find out. I have an idea, but I don't want to say it because I want it to be a surprise. But you'll see when it happens. That's all I got. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.